Hey guys, it's Julia here, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about some things you guys can do because Windows 10 is about to end support on October 14th of 2025, and I know a lot of people are still running Windows 10 and they're like, what should I do? So in this video, I'm going to give you guys several options of things you can do, and then from there, you can decide what thing you think is best. So obviously, if I go to settings and I go to update and security on this VM, you will see that it says Windows 10 support ends in October 2025. Enroll in extended security updates to help keep your device secure. So if you want to stay on Windows 10, you can actually enroll in this extended security updates program, which will allow you to get updates for another year. However, there's a few things to note about this program. So the first thing is that if I actually try to enroll, I'm going to try to enroll this VM into the extended security updates program. And you guys will see it says enroll in extended security updates to stay protected. Basically, you have this enroll thing which tells you like support ends, and then it says you can enroll without having to worry, so you have time to get a new computer or whatever, and you have maybe later and next. Now, this looks promising, but there's a caveat to doing this, which I will show you guys because I'm going to click through this. You have to sign in to a Microsoft account. So if you don't have a Microsoft account, you'll have to make one, or you'll have to sign into your account and enroll through there, which I believe will fully sign the computer into the Microsoft account. And to even get it with a Microsoft account, you either have to sync your PC settings, spend 1,000 Microsoft Rewards points, or you have to spend $30. Now, if you're in the EU, you should be able to just click enroll, and it automatically enrolls you in the ESU program without any Microsoft account, so I guess that's nice to the EU users out there. However, say you want to enroll, but you don't want to do a Microsoft account, and you don't want to back up your computer to OneDrive, well, I got some good news for you, so let's just get out of this, because we don't want to do no Microsoft account. As you guys will see, there is a GitHub script which is called Consumer ESU, which I'll leave a link in the description, but it allows you to enroll in ESU with or without a Microsoft account. All you have to do is download the zip, extract all the files, and then run the Consumer ESU enrollment run.cmd as administrator. And I'm going to demonstrate this because I've actually not done this yet. This is the first time I've actually done this, so I'm going to download this. And I have the zip here, and I'm going to extract it. I'm just going to use 7-zip to extract it because it's already on here. And I'm going to open this. I've never used this before, but I've read about it, and it seems like a pretty good idea to enroll in ESU. There's a PowerShell script, which there is an option on there to run as PowerShell, but honestly, the easiest option for anyone is just to right-click and run this. And you guys will see what it is doing right now. It has enrolled our VM, because you can see it says it's eligible, success, obtain MSA token, so got a Microsoft account token for the local account, and it says it's successfully enrolled, and that is super easy. You just do that and you get updates for another year, and I think that's honestly a very quick and easy solution for the people that are just quite not ready to upgrade to Windows 11 yet, or their device simply doesn't support Windows 11. However, even if your device doesn't support Windows 11, there's some other options here that you can do, which will be very useful. But anywho, we don't have to worry about that enroll anymore. In fact, it just disappeared and says, your PC is enrolled to get extended security updates. Learn more about extended security updates. And if I click this, it talks about it, so you can read about it and stuff. So that's, pretty cool. But there you have it, guys. That is how you get ESU. But that is option number 1 because it's the quickest option, it's the easiest option, and, it's the way to do it. Now, if you want to go like the normal route of enrolling with your Microsoft account, like if you already have one and you already back up, then obviously enroll the normal way because it's easier. Or if you already have the reward points, might as well do it. But if you're one of those people that doesn't use a Microsoft account and you don't have the money to necessarily pay for ESU, you could just use this script and it'll do the job. So anywho, let's move on to the next option. Okay, so that's option number 1 to do the ESU, but option number 2, which you guys will see if I go into Windows Update right here, it actually is offering the Windows 11 upgrade. It says Windows 11 version 24H2 is ready and it's free. Get the latest version of Windows with a new look, new features, and enhanced security, and we can download and install Windows 11, which by the way, the latest is actually 25H2 as of recording this video, but it's only pulling 24H2 for some reason, but 25H2 is just an enablement package, so it's not a big deal. But you'll see down here the Windows Update icon's blue, and it says Windows 11 version 24H2 is ready for your PC. So essentially, option number 2 is, if you have a supported computer that can run Windows 11, might as well just upgrade it to Windows 11. It has significantly improved over the years, and it's not as bad anymore. Now, if you're unsure if your PC supports Windows 11, you can actually download the PC Health Check app, and you'll see when I open it, it says our PC Health at a glance, introducing Windows 11. You could check compatibility, and you'll see that it says a PC meets the Windows 11 requirements. You can see the results, and it tells you everything, so that way if it doesn't meet the requirements, you can see why, because it'll tell you why. And a lot of the time it's because of TPM 2.0, which you can just enable in your BIOS, and there you go. You have a supported computer with Windows 11, and you just had to enable TPM in order to receive it. So you could download PC Health Check from Microsoft, but I'm just going to upgrade this VM to Windows 11, which I'm just going to accept the terms, no one reads those, and you guys will see we are now downloading Windows 11 version 24H2. So while this installs, I'm going to mention a few important things. So if your Windows Update is offering like Windows 11 version 23H2 or older, I would recommend not updating via Windows Update and using the next method in this video, which is going to be using a Windows 11 ISO or updating via the Windows 11 Update Assistant. Reason for that is because you don't want to have to upgrade to Windows 11 just to have to upgrade again, because Windows 11 23H2 ends support next month and it's no longer going to get security updates. And I also heard from another friend that actually upgraded to 23H2, they then upgraded to 24H2 right after, and for some reason their files like got lost or something. So I heard that you have to actually delete windows.old through settings or disk cleanup before upgrading to 24H2 again, although that might have just been a fluke with whatever happened. I've not been able to verify if that's actually a problem or not. But best thing to say, do not update through Windows Update if it's offering an older feature update than 24H2. Like if it's 24H2, you can update, or if you want to get 25H2, you can just use the Update Assistant or ISO. Alright guys, so I came back after a while and you can see that the update is now pending restart, and it says restart to install the newest Windows feature update. So this will take a little bit more time than a normal update, especially because we're going from Windows 10 to 11. However, let's just restart this so that way we can get to Windows 11. And you guys will see it says updates are underway, which is something Windows 11 actually says, but I noticed that when you're upgrading from 10 to 11, it also says it as well, and after this, we'll get the good old working on updates screen. And we got the newer Windows 11 loading screen and the newer spinny wheel, and then we'll be greeted with this working on updates, which this actually will be quick in the first 30%, as you can see, and then it reboots and it will finish, and depending on your hardware, this could take a while, or it could be very quick. Okay, so I let this sit, and you guys will see that we are finally at our desktop of Windows 11, and it doesn't really look much different. You can change some things too, like if you don't like everything in the center, you can move the taskbar to the left and other stuff like that. But first thing I do when I install Windows 11 or update is I check Windows Update, because it doesn't always get every single update, so it's always just a good habit to do this, and you can see I'm actually getting an update right now. And then I'd recommend going to Advanced and go to Optional and do any drivers that you might have in here, because also drivers will get updated when you do feature updates, as there'll probably be newer versions for Windows 11, so it's not a bad idea to go do that. Anyways, I'll reboot once this is done, and then I'll check again. Maybe it'll get 25H2, and I recommend checking again as well. And yeah. Okay, so I'm briefly going to show the next two upgrade methods before moving on to the next method, just in case you want to do these instead. So another method is just to search Windows 11 download, go here, and you can see when you scroll down, there's the Windows 11 installation assistant. You could just download this, run this file, click yes to the UAC, it'll say install Windows 11, good news, it meets the minimum requirements if you do, and then you accept and install, and you just let this do its thing, and it'll just upgrade you to Windows 11. So that's another quick and easy solution to also guarantee you get the latest version of 11, aka version 25H2. Okay, for some reason I keep getting this error trying to upgrade, so let's just show you the third method just in case this is happening to you. Back on the Windows 11 download page, scroll down to where it says download Windows 11 disk image ISO for x64 devices, and then select the only one that's there, I guess, confirm, and then select your language, which in my case will be English, United States, confirm. And then it should give you a link here to download an ISO. So all you do is let this download, It'll take a little bit of time, and then we'll go to the next step. Once I got the ISO, I right-click and open it with Explorer, which you can normally just double-click on it, but I had 7-zip. Anyways, I run the setup.exe file, and it's going to launch our setup. And from there, I just click next and let the setup go. Now there is another method to running setup that's a lot better that will make this actually go a lot quicker, because you'll see after I accept the license agreement, it starts getting updates and checking for updates. So let's show you guys how to do it without checking for updates. Since I had it mounted, I just double clicked on the DVD drive and clicked yes to the user account control, and our setup opens again. And here you'll click change how setup downloads updates and then click not now. From there, it'll actually allow you to go through the setup without having to check for updates and take forever. And then it installs keeping everything. As you'll see, we're back to the Windows 11 desktop, and I go to settings and immediately check for Windows updates because I didn't allow updates during installation, and it's best to do this anyway. So you'll see I'm actually receiving updates, and it did actually update to 25H2 because it was a newer ISO. I end up rebooting for the updates, and then I go back to the optional updates section again and do all of those. And then from there, I end up rechecking for updates just to make sure there's no other updates available, and then I let those install. And there you have it, Windows 11 25H2. Okay, so for the third option, most people probably don't want to do this, but it's simply just to switch to a different operating system, such as Linux. Wait, before we talk about Linux, let's talk about some other possible operating system options, such as macOS. Obviously, you'd use macOS if you're switching to the Apple ecosystem, for example, getting a MacBook or something like that, which honestly, I think they're really good devices. I got one recently and I'm pleased with it. So if you want to go the macOS route, that's also an option. Or say you want to go the Chrome OS route, so maybe you'll get a Chromebook, or you'll decide to get Chrome OS Flex, which is another operating system that you can actually install on your computer. If you're planning on just using a web browser and nothing else, it's perfect, and it just has Chrome, and it has everything you'll need. And honestly, you won't have to really worry about support, because I believe Chrome OS Flex will get updates for quite a while. And same with most Chromebooks out there getting support for several years. Anyways, back to the video. So you can see there's actually many Linux distributions out there that you can switch to. However, most of these I actually don't really recommend. Some of them are good, some of them are decent, but I'm going to tell you guys my take on this. If you're a beginner, I highly recommend Linux Mint because it has a Windows-like experience and I think it's pretty good. I don't really recommend Ubuntu because it has snap packages and those are not really great, to be honest. If you're moderate, Arch Linux is pretty good. I used it in the past and I'd say it's a nice operating system. And obviously if you're very experienced, Gentoo or Linux from scratch, but I'm sure most people don't want to do that. But however, there are many Linux distributions, and not all of them are listed here. A lot of these I've not even heard of on this list, to be honest, so yeah. I honestly prefer Linux Mint for beginners, so I'm going to download this onto our virtual machine. So for Linux Mint, there's 3 versions, there's Cinnamon, XFCE, or Mate, and you can read about them, but I'm honestly just going to download the Cinnamon edition, it's the most popular, and this will just be for this video. Anyways, I'm just going to scroll down and click from a random US mirror to download it. And I'm going to let this download, and yeah. Now obviously you got to put it on a USB, right? Well, I recommend using Rufus, which this will allow you to create a USB of Linux Mint or any other Linux distribution that you need. There's also other tools, but this is just personally what I use. Or you could go the Ventoy route, which I made a video about that a while back. But anywho, let's install this. For this demonstration, I'm going to boot the Linux Mint ISO on this virtual machine I have, which is pretty simple. Just go to the boot menu, which on my VM it was Escape, but it might be different based on manufacturer you have. And then I'm going to just run the install Linux Mint. Now what I did here was completely wiped the operating system entirely. There is an option which you'll see come up soon that says you can install it alongside, but I decided just to erase the whole disk and install Linux Mint, so be sure you have a backup before doing so. And then it says it's going to erase it and everything, and I continue, and then it asks for my location, for time zone I guess, and then I started giving it, username and password to set up for the user. But anywho, Linux Mint installs, which doesn't take too long. I sped this up obviously. And then at this point, it obviously finished the installation. It said I can either continue testing the OS or I could reboot into the new Linux installation, in which I reboot into the new Linux installation. And then you'll see I log in and it says this welcome to Linux Mint thing, and then it has me set up some things and kind of tells me about it, because if you're a new Linux user, you're not going to necessarily know what you're doing. And obviously we got our basic functionality like a web browser to go to Google or do whatever. And then you guys will see here that I'll end up going to the system specifications, and you can see it's running Linux Mint. And then I start updating stuff. So there's actually an option to update drivers, but it found nothing. And then there's like an update manager where I can actually update the system. So this is how you'd update all your Linux packages, which is very important to obviously keep your packages up to date because, you know, Linux has updates as well. In fact, they seem to be more often than Windows because they're like every day, it seems. But anywho, that is Linux Mint, and obviously, if you want to do any kind of Linux distribution, you're more than welcome to. Obviously, pick a Linux distribution you'd be comfortable with, and yeah. So the fourth option I have for you guys are for the people that mainly want to stay on Windows 10 for a long period of time and want to have support. And with this method, it's called upgrading to Windows 10 LTSC. Because Windows 10 LTSC, the IoT version, has support until the year 2032, which will give you a lot of support. Obviously, if programs drop support, it won't help with that, but it will help you guys if you want to stay on Windows 10. So I found a script on GitHub called LTS Convert, and it'll convert your installation to Windows 10 IoT Enterprise LTSC 2021. Without any data loss, and it's for those who want to avoid switching to 11 and keep receiving updates on 10. Because as I said, the ESU that I showed at the beginning of the video only lasts a year. It only lasts until 2026, but this lasts until 2032, so this is a pretty good viable option. Now I'm not sure if this works with Windows 11 LTSC, but that's another option. You could upgrade to Windows 11 LTSC IoT, and that has support for even longer. And also, Windows 11 LTSC IoT doesn't have all those stupid system requirements either, meaning you'd still get updates and all that. Anyways, link in description, let's get started. Alright, so we're gonna run the ltsconvert.bat as administrator and click yes on the user account control, and you'll see we have a write LTSC registry keys. We do that first, and then it says it's been written successfully, and then we click on the convert. Now on this part, I'm just gonna click OK. I'm gonna disregard that because I'm not gonna show that part in this video. But you're going to essentially go to your desktop or wherever you downloaded your ISO and then double click on it. It does say you can press cancel and it will download one, but I already have one on hand, so I'm just going to double click on it. And then from this point, it's going to launch the setup and we just click through it. I'm honestly going to tell it to not get updates during setup because that's going to take a while. However, if you have the time and patience, then you can, because this ISO is very out of date as it's from 2021 and Microsoft refuses to update the ISOs. So I'm deciding to use this one because for some reason my IoT ISO kept asking for a product key during setup and I didn't want to have to like find one, and this does not, and most people are probably just going to download one anyway. So yeah, and also you can update it afterwards anyway, which is what we are going to do. So anywho, I'm going to wait for this. Now note this might take a while, however don't worry, it is working, just give it time. Alright guys, so we're on the ready to install screen, and it says install Windows 10 Enterprise LTSC and keep personal files and apps, which will keep everything. We're going to click install, and yes, I know it doesn't say IoT, however if you follow all the steps in this script, it will convert you to IoT. So anyways, I'm going to let this install. Alright, so I'm back and the VM successfully updated, and now we're going to go to settings and we're going to go to update and security, and I'm going to immediately check for Windows updates. Now I'm not going to show the last part of the script for obvious reasons, however that is the part that will actually convert it to IoT LTSC, and why currently it's not on the IoT version. And also one thing to note that I noticed after upgrading to LTSC is that it re-enabled all my startup apps, so I had to go and actually disable them in Task Manager under Startup. I'm not sure why, I think it's just something with the older ISO, because I tried this with my newer updated ISO and it did not have that issue. One important thing to note, do not click restart now until all updates are pending restart, because it is a bug or it wants to reboot before it's done, so just wait for this to update and then restart it. Alright, all the updates are pending restart, so I'm going to go ahead and reboot this and let this update. Alright, so the VM finished updating a little bit ago, and we're going to go back and I'm going to check for updates again, and it should be theoretically up to date, and we'll see here. Of course, there's another update, so it's always good to check again because you never know. And we're up to date. Let's check for updates again. Also, if you have any optional updates, there'll be a view optional updates button here, which I recommend clicking and doing all those, as you may have some driver updates after doing this, so yeah. And there you guys have it, Windows 10 LTSC 2021. As you can see, we got LTSC and it's 21H2, but that's not much of a difference. Yes, I know it's not IoT, that's because you have to do the last part of the script, which I don't want to show in this video for obvious reasons, and that will convert you to IoT, and then you'll have support until 2032. Let's go! Anyways, that is the fourth option, which is just to use LTSC. You might be able to upgrade to 11 LTSC using the same method, or you could just let it write the registry keys and then run the 11 ISO, although I don't think it actually checks what ISO you mount, so it should work with that too. You could also just do a clean install of LTSC, which isn't a bad idea either. I'd honestly recommend that if you can. Anyways, let's go on and talk about the last couple options we have left. Now the next option I don't really recommend, however I gotta throw it out there as it's still an option that some people might want to do, which is just to run Windows 11 unofficially. I know there's ways to get Windows 11 on unsupported hardware. I'm gonna mention a couple things here and a couple notes if you're gonna do this. So one method is using Rufus to make a Windows USB, and then when you create it, it gives those options to bypass the Windows 11 system requirements. People can then use that USB to either upgrade their computer to Windows 11 or even clean install Windows 11 on a system that doesn't support it. However, if you are going to do that, I do recommend installing this thing I found on GitHub, which as you guys can see here, it's called Win11 Requirement Bypass, and it bypasses the Windows 11 installation and update restrictions. And the reason why I recommend this one is it bypasses the Windows Update compatibility check, so it'll allow you to get feature updates on unsupported devices. I will mention I have not used this before, but I did see it being talked about on Reddit, so if you want to check this out, it's a possible option. But also note, 24H211 doesn't even work on certain CPUs, like if they're extremely old. There's also this old script I found called bypass 11 and this skip TPM check on dynamic update. However, reading about it, it seems it only works if you're using an ISO to upgrade to Windows 11. I don't believe this actually works in Windows Update. However, it might. You could try it if you want, but I know this script for sure is an option because I have used this before. One quick bypass I wanted to mention though is running setup.exe with the server setup, because that's really simple as server doesn't check the system requirements. However, you'd have to do this every single time there's a new feature update, but with this at least you wouldn't need to install any bypasses, right? The reason I don't really recommend doing any of this stuff is because for number one, you might have issues in the future with your computer, especially because it doesn't support the 11 requirements, like you might have certain updates not be able to work, and you might have to do bypasses just to get the updates to install, especially the feature updates, because those will always check your system requirements. I know if you have that one bypasser though, you might not have to worry about that. However, it's never a good idea to bypass the requirements and all that stuff unless you really know what you're doing. I honestly think the other options I said in this video are much more viable and much better compared to this. I will leave both of the links to these GitHubs in the description and you guys can let me know what you guys think. Now for the last resort option, you could just get a new computer. Now I know many people can't get a new computer because they are expensive, however you can get a used computer that actually supports the Windows 11 requirements. You need at least an 8th generation CPU to get Windows 11, and you can find 8th gen systems for $100 or less on eBay, and it's honestly not a bad system. If you're just browsing the internet, doing basic things, it should work perfectly fine to fit your needs. However, if you simply just browse the internet and you don't really do much, then consider getting a Chromebook. Those are perfect for that task and will get things done. Or say you want to switch to the Apple ecosystem. You can maybe think about getting a MacBook and just ditching Windows altogether. However, Macs are very pricey, so keep that in mind. Anyways, I hope all of that helps you guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about all of these possibilities of things you guys can do. I know it's a lot, but if you guys have any questions, please leave a comment below and I'll be sure to answer. And if you need any help with any of these steps, let me know. I'm always willing to help people, especially if they're having problems, so if you're having issues upgrading or something, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to help you. I remember back then with the recovery update video, many people were reaching out to me due to issues, and I was actually helping them and getting their problems fixed. So yeah, I'm willing to help if you need it. Anyways guys, thanks for watching the video. That's gonna wrap this up. It's a little bit later than expected because I actually planned for this video to go up next week, but I wanted to do it this week instead, because this is really important since Windows 10 end of support is coming up and I want to make sure that everyone gets it dealt with and finds a solution. So yeah, anyways, thanks for watching, and also thanks to my channel members, which are Samira Yoshizawa, The Full Moon, Christian1739, Overgreen, Stratic8, Sidevlogs, DJ1I28, Dencorn, Cyclone, Caden, Chase Shep, Ritu, Micrea, Chris Garrett, Zach's Tech Place, Noel BRN, Gazelle Edge, along with everyone else here on this list. I really appreciate your guys' support for being a channel member. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hopefully this video helps you guys out, and bye-bye for now.